So now let's talk about step 2 of our game project here. So we already in step 1 saw how we can draw images to the screen, and that's good, but if we really want to make this a game, we need to make it interactive. So in step 2, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at how we can get input from the user and move our character sprite. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with that. So we've already seen how to use several of the built-in functions that P5.js provides for us. So for instance, we've seen the setup function here. We've seen the draw function. We've looked at create canvas, a load image, background and image. So those are several functions that we've already looked at. But what we're going to do in this step is we're going to create a new function of our own that we're going to use to check to see if the player is pressing one of the 4 direction or arrow keys on their keyboard. So up, down, left, or right. And then what this function is going to do is if the player is pressing any one of those buttons, we're going to move the player sprite in the appropriate direction. Okay, so let's talk about how to make a function. So the first thing we're going to do to make a new function is we're going to put our cursor on a new line that's below and outside of the draw function's body. Okay, so remember the body is the curly braces of a function. That's the function body. So we're going to go ahead and put our cursor on a new line that's outside of the draw function's curly braces. Okay, so you got a brand new empty line. All right, and it's not inside of any other functions. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to write the word function to let the computer know that we're declaring a new function here. And then we're going to come up with a name for our function, all right? And we're going to go ahead and call it check input because we're going to be checking for keyboard input, all right? And then in this case, we're going to have an empty set of parentheses because we're not going to be passing this function any arguments or parameters, so we're going to have that empty set of parentheses, okay? And then we want to put a set of curly braces that's going to open and close the function body. Okay, so now we have a new function called check input that takes no arguments, no parameters, and right now we do have a function body, but it's empty. Okay, so everything between the curly braces right now is empty. So this is what we should have so far. And again, make sure that it's not inside of any other functions. Okay, no, not inside of any other function bodies. All right. So once you have that, the next thing that we want to talk about is how are we going to check to see if a key is pressed? So that's what we said we're going to put inside of this function here. So let's take this one step at a time. Let's do one button at a time. We'll start with checking to see if the left arrow is on the keyboard is pressed. Okay? So in order to do this, we're going to use what's called a conditional statement. And what a conditional statement is, it's a code structure that checks to see if a given statement or condition is either true or false. All right? And then we could take appropriate action in the game depending on that result. So if the statement, the conditional is true, then we can take one action. And if it's false, maybe we can take a different action. All right? So we're going to use something called an if statement, which is a very basic type of conditional statement here. So what it basically looks like is the first thing we do is we, inside of our function body, we write the word if, and then we write a set of parentheses. Okay, and inside of the parentheses, we're going to say what the condition is. So we're going to say if. So let's just write what this generally looks like. So we're going to I'll just put a comment here. So if condition is true, okay, then you have another set of curly braces that's going to be the body of the if statement, and then in here you'll have you'll do some code if this if statement is true. So do this code if the statement is true. Okay, so this is generally what an if statement looks like. So you have the word if, then you have a set of parentheses, and you have the condition that you want to check. And if that condition is true, then you'll do whatever is inside of the curly braces after the if statement. Okay? So we said that we want to check the left arrow to see if it's pressed. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take this part out, this if condition is true. We're going to take that out now. And we're going to put in some code here that checks to see if the left arrow is pressed. And in order to do that, we're going to call another built-in P5JS function called key is down. Okay, so if key is down, okay, so again, make sure you look at the capitalization here. And key is down is a function, so we have to have a set of parentheses to whether or not we pass an argument. But we actually are going to give an argument to the key is down function. Okay? So with the key is down function, the argument that you press, or I'm sorry, the argument that you pass it is a code for the key that you want to check. Okay? So the code for the key code for the left arrow is, and I'm going to put all caps lock here, so left and then underscore arrow. Okay, if you need help finding the underscore key, it should be next to the 0 on your keyboard. It's between the 0 and the plus sign, and you hold down the shift key when you press that key, and it'll give you an underscore. Okay, so we have if key is down, left arrow, and again make sure that you have the matching sets of opening and closing parentheses. So you have the opening and closing parentheses for the argument, the left arrow argument, and then you have the opening and closing parentheses for the whole if statement. Okay? So if key is down, left arrow. So this is basically saying if the left key is pressed, then what do we need to do? If the left arrow is pressed, then let's think back to our discussion in step 1 when we were talking about the screen's coordinate system. So if you remember, we said that the x-coordinate represents how far to the left or right an object is on the screen. So basically it's the x-coordinate is the horizontal position on the screen. And we also said that as you move to the right of the origin, then the x gets bigger, right? But as you move to the left, then it gets smaller. So basically what we want to do here is we know that the variable that's keeping track of where our player's x position is player x. So if it's moving to the left, we want it to get smaller, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this comment here, do this code if the statement is true. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, if the left arrow is pressed, I'm going to subtract 5 from the player x variable, okay? So here's what it's going to look like. So I'm going to do, oops, I have it in caps lock, so remember capitalization matters, so I need to go back to lowercase. Okay, so player x, and I'm going to set it equal to something new now. So it's going to be, the player x is going to be set equal to the original player x value minus 5. Okay? So this is going to move it to the left. Now, there's actually a shorter way to write this. So you notice here that I'm writing player x twice. So if I want to take a variable and just add or subtract from it, instead of having to write the variable out twice, what I can do is I can make this a little bit shorter. So I can say instead of player x equals player x minus 5, I can change this to say player x minus equals 5. Okay, so it's just a shorter way to write player x equals player x minus 5. All right, so we now know how to check for the left key being pressed. So before we go ahead and add the other keys, let's just go ahead and test this out just so you can see that it works. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that we actually call our check input function. So we created it, but since it's not a built-in function, it's not going to get called. It's not set up and draw get called automatically by P5JS, so we don't have to explicitly call them, but we do for check input. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the bottom of the draw function, and we're going to just add a call to our check input function. Okay, so inside of my curly braces for the draw function, at the end, I'm going to write check input. Okay, and again, since we're not defining or the check input function, we've already done that. We're just calling it, so we don't have to write function again. We just write the name. Okay, we're not passing it any arguments. So now let's go ahead and just test this out and run it and make sure everything looks good like it's supposed to. All right, good. So we'll notice that when we press the left arrow, it moves. Okay, and it does move outside of the screen. We're not going to add any code to stop it from going outside of the screen right now, because there's no negative consequences for the player going off the screen. And once we add the other 4 arrows, or I'm sorry, the other 3 arrows keys, it's easy to move back into the screen. So we're not going to worry about that for now. But just make sure that your left arrow key works. And if you're noticing that that it doesn't seem to be working, make sure that you click on the preview screen area first to give it focus, and then try pressing the left key. Okay? All right. Good. So we've got that going on. Now we can go in and we can go back to our check input function, and we can add the rest of our keys. All right. So let's go ahead and let's do the right arrow key now. So it's going to be very similar. So we're gonna do if key is down. But this time we're going to do the right arrow. And again, make sure that you're paying attention to the capitalization. All right. So now, if the right arrow is down, what are we going to do? So left and right direction is still player X. But now I'm going to be moving to the right. So I'm going to increase the player X by 5. So this time I'm going to do player X plus equals 5 and move it over by 5 pixels. And again, pixels are the unit of measurement on the screen. Okay, so just the same way that in real life you measure things in inches or centimeters or whatever, pixels are a unit of measurement on the screen. So we're going to move to the right by 5 pixels. Okay, so now moving to the right and moving to the left work. So that's good. Okay, now let's go ahead and finish this up. Let's do the up and down arrow keys. All right, so let's do up first. All right, so if key is down, up arrow. So now if we're moving up and down, we're not working with player X anymore. Now we're moving in the Y direction, vertical direction. So I'm going to do player Y. And remember, if you look back at step 1, at that coordinate system explanation we did, we said that if you move up, that means that the Y is getting smaller. Okay? So player Y, if it's moving up, we're going to do minus equals 5. Okay? So I'm moving up. Good, good. Okay, and now let's just finish this off. So I'm going to do, if key is down, down arrow, then what are we doing this time? So now we're moving down. We're still working with Y, but this time it's getting bigger as it moves down. So it's plus equal 5. All right? So now I'm moving in all 4 directions. All right? And you'll notice if you hold down different keys at once, you'll get a combination, so you can move diagonally. And if you press both the left and right at the same time, they'll cancel each other out, so you won't be moving. But the important thing is we have our player sprite moving. All right. We'll talk about collision very shortly within the next couple of steps. But for now, make sure you've got the 4 direction keys working properly.